This is a very exciting place in history to be here, and I wanted to share with you a vignette from history in the city of Gdansk. I have no conflicts of interest to confess. In the 19th century, the admonition was don't open the pleura. The patient's going to asphyxiate quickly and die, so surgeons don't open the chest cavity. That was Diefenbach. But a young surgeon in Gdansk wanted to push the envelope. His name was H.M. Bloch, and as you can see, Gdansk looked pretty much like it did today in the 1880s. And Bloch began a series of investigations and surgical investigations to repair heart wounds and to resect lung tissue. He reviewed the literature. He found a couple of other surgeons who were doing work, and these involved resection of ribs and costal cartilage. People like Thiersch in Leipzig and Kuster and Volkmann in Berlin. He worked also in Halle in Germany. The early procedures took 45 minutes, and of course they all died. But he was able to, using a different method that he developed in Gdansk, in Danzig, a single intercostal incision without rib resections, and he was able to get the operating time down to 3 minutes. And he actually had some survivors. He was able to resect lobes of the lung in dogs and rabbits and get survivors with this new method. And so he started to push the envelope again. He published his work, and he took it to medical meetings, as we've all done here today, and perhaps some of these treatments are comparable to this. But in any case, he stated that he would not hesitate to transfer his experiences to human beings. And he specifically mentioned stab and gunshot wounds and phthisis, as tuberculosis was then called. In June of 1882, he went to the Surgical Congress in Berlin, and together with Braun of Heidelberg and Gluck of Berlin, he described methods of thoracotomy. He repaired the heart wounds by pulling strongly on the heart, pulling it out of the thorax, and after the heart had stopped, suturing it and letting it back, in which case it would start to beat again. A little bit something we would do that much different today, but he did have survivors with that method. And he was convinced that he could transfer this intervention into human beings, especially in cases of tamponade. He next took it to the Pope of Medicine, Rudolf Virchow, in Berlin. And he, probably during the same trip that he presented his results. And in Virchow's lab, he reported his results in cows, pigs, dogs, and he brought dogs and rabbits with him, and he vivisected them, an ugly word, to show that the lungs had fully re-expanded and were still working in these dogs following his operations. He met a visitor from Boston called G.L. Walton, and he asked that Walton translate his work so that it could be published in the English literature. And Walton agreed, but he never got a final draft. Bloch told him that he was thinking of applying his method to the treatment of phthisis, or to tissikers, who can be helped by this thoracotomy. And Walton mentioned, however, that he found it hard to communicate his unbounded enthusiasm and confidence to others, and though much interest was shown, people saw problems ahead if he moved ahead with his ideas. In late 1882, Walton found that he had indeed moved ahead to apply this clinically. And he had operated for presumed tuberculosis in a human subject. That human subject was a young female relative, his niece. And he performed an elective thoracotomy and to treat tuberculosis. And unfortunately, the patient died during surgery, and no evidence of tuberculosis was found. Of course, this is 14 years before Roentgen, so that's not surprising. A judicial inquiry was initiated, and Bloch took his own life with a gunshot wound. So this was a 200% mortality. Who is Bloch? Where did he? Well, we don't even know his full name, where he was trained, etc. So I came here and I gave this talk in 1996 in the hopes, the naive hope, that I would be able to find more information about Bloch. But I didn't. I was naive in the sense that I didn't know other important historical tragedies that had occurred in Gdansk. Specifically, on September 1st, 1939, there was a ceremonial visit of a battleship into the city of Gdansk. And the battleship, the next morning at 4:50 in the morning, opened fire on the Westplatte, which was the small garrison of 188 soldiers that guarded the port of Gdansk. And the Schleswig-Holstein opened fire. The first shots of World War II occurred maybe a mile from here, and of course did tremendous damage to the city. The people in Westerplatte were very brave and held out for weeks. You can go and visit their memorial while you're here if you have the time. In any case, after U.S. Army Air Corps attacks on Gdansk in 1943 and the Russian siege in 1945, this is what Gdansk looked like. And as you can see, the Polish people have lovingly reconstructed it and to the city that we see today. So what take-home lessons do we take from this? I take home three. First, like Bloch, we should not move forward with a new intervention unless we've proven that it is efficacious and safe. Second of all, like the Polish people, we have to roll up our sleeves and lay those bricks one at a time to build this beautiful edifice, kind of like I-ELCAP as an edifice that shows, after all of this accumulated work, that we should move forward with lung cancer. But finally, I've learned at this meeting that there is, as there was in Poland, there was a stultifying, obstructionist bureaucracy that blocked forward progress. And at that stage, and we appear to have that in Western Europe today. As I hear efforts in Holland and in the Netherlands, in Italy, in Spain, we have this bureaucratic obstruction. And at this point in time, it becomes a political and social medicine issue. And of course, we're very familiar with that in the United States with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But in any case, this issue of how to move forward from science into public health and politics is perhaps something that could be further discussed in I-ELCAP meetings in the future. Thank you very much.